Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel where we do painting tutorials. Today I'll be doing a little misty forest landscape with watercolor pencils, and I've started by swatching out my pencils onto a scrap piece of watercolor paper. I'll be using Phthalo Green, Phthalo Blue, Helio Blue Reddish, and Black from my Fabric Castell set, and I start by mixing my blues with the green to get this very nice, almost turquoise kind of color, and I apply it over a wet background to create this very soft look. Then I gradually add small amounts of black into the mix, and I apply this on the top portion of the background while it is still wet to darken up just the top side. Apologies if my voice is still off and this tutorial catches you late. I was down with a cold last week, so if I talk to my nose too much, you know why. I just drank my best. Apologies. Anyway, I mix a bit more of my green with the black and the dark blue and just layer this onto each other. It is very important to have your paper still wet, so you might want to work slightly faster for this. That may be a bit more challenging for beginners, so if you're a complete beginner, I do advise you on getting some cotton paper or something that has a cotton blend, because what cotton does is it makes the paints dry slower, it holds more onto the water compared to cheap cellulose paper, so that might be a little painting hack you may be interested in, especially if you are a beginner. If you don't want to break the bank, you can usually get large, and I mean huge, like 50 by 70 centimeters cotton sheets at a rather affordable price compared to sketchbooks. For an example, one sheet of Fabriano Artistico 300% cotton was about $6 compared to $50 for a sketchbook, at least in my art shop. Prices will vary depending on where you live. That's just how I deal with it and what I can advise you to. Now, while everything is still mostly wet, I take that dark mixture I used to darken the top corners and I do some vertical lines in the middle section of my painting. They're going to diffuse onto the wet background and create some very faint tree/forest shapes. You can add some blobs of paint onto it to make it look like foliage, or some extra lines to make it look like twigs. That's completely up to you. And then I just leave this to air dry. Why? Because I prefer the look of air dry over a hairdryer or a heat gun. It just makes it look more, I don't know, whenever I use a hairdryer I get some very funky corners and edges when it dries. Like, it creates some very weird patches, and I just prefer air drying. It's just easier. I don't know, I should probably make a video comparing the two. Yeah, let's do that next week. And I'll probably forget. But back to us. I take more of my turquoise mix, which is dry, so I need to add a bit more water onto the swatches and remix it. And I use that to paint some slopes, some fields. You can see basically just some horizontal lines onto the bottom half of the page is what I'm trying to say here. I'm mixing my blue with my green, and I do these like hilltops, field tops, I don't know, just bits you can see through the mist, and we'll add some trees on them to make it make a bit more sense. And for the ones that are closest to us, meaning closest to the bottom of the page, I do add a smidge of black to darken it up and make it a bit more saturated, because the closer something is to us, the darker and more saturated and vibrant it is compared to objects we have in the distance, aka in the background. Now, I mostly used up the initial swatches I had on my scrap piece of paper, so I quickly applied the colors I will be needing on the bottom of that sheet right there, just so I do not run out of color as I'm painting, because watercolor pencils do dry up very, very fast. And it would be very difficult if you run out of color when you need it, because then your painting is gonna dry. And yeah, just do yourself a favor and apply more of the colors than what you think you end up using. That way you just save yourself the hassle. I mix a slightly dark turquoisey color, and I do some pretty small trees in the middle, just some dry up trees, I don't know, some twigs, or they can be bushes, depends on how you view it. Then I dip my brush into the water jar, and I have this very light and diluted turquoise color, because like I just diluted my brush into the water. And I used that to paint some fair trees on the left side of my painting. I just used a thicker line towards where the trunk is, meaning I slightly pressed my brush more towards the paper. That's how you get a thicker line. Then I gently lift it up to get smaller, more detailed ones for the twigs that branch out of the tree crown. And for the right side of my painting, as you can tell by the bottom piece of land that is very dark, that is the part that is going to be closest to us, so the trees that are standing on it are also going to be the darkest. So I add more black, quite a lot of more black to my turquoise mix, making it black but with a subtle hint of green, like a very, very dark olive color. I paint a straight line and then I tap over it to create some foliage for the tree that is going to be right in front of us. I'm basically randomly tapping over it. That's how you get good foliage. You don't need to paint every single leaf when you paint a tree. We just need to give the idea of a tree, and randomness is a pretty good way to achieve that. Then I do another tree right next to it that is slightly out of frame. Again, we start with thicker trunk and then gets thinner and thinner as we move upwards towards the top branches. And you can spread them out however you want and make them as twisted as you want, like take complete liberty. You can make them crisscross each other, you can split them at the ends, do whatever. As you can tell, it's not a realistic painting, we don't do that on this channel. Then I do slightly darken up the bottom of the trunk by adding more black onto it. Dilute the bottom with clean water so it's not like one black spot right beneath the tree. It sort of feathers out, makes it look better. And I apply whatever excess of black I have on my swatch card on the bottom side of all of the branches on the big tree in the middle. I had some excess blue and green and I thought I'd add that too because you don't want it to be straight black. It would look weird because we don't have anything that is completely black in the painting. So yeah, adding a bit more of the colors we used is going to make it more cohesive, meaning it's just going to look more thought out. It's gonna make it look more harmonious, meaning you just need to repeat the colors you have used in your painting throughout your painting, and it's going to make it look more put together and professional. And that is it. I'd like to give a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters for the month of February, and thank you all for watching. If you found any value or use in this video, please let me know down in the comments, and we'll see each other in the next one. Bye bye!